Today it's not officially on client yet, but yeah, so the first big change is they added a new rune. It's going to basically reduce spell cooldowns by 30% and mana cost by 50%. I think the biggest thing is that it lasts for 50 seconds. That's like an extremely long time. So in the early game, that could kind of matter, maybe on a hero like Zeus, but in the late game especially on a hero like Zeus, like, I mean, this is huge on like spell casting heroes late game. I mean, that's actually crazy. Like, imagine this on Storm Spirit. I know that the hero kind of sucks, but like some heroes, this could be really crazy on. So I'm almost expecting them to nerf the duration, but that's my first opinion on that. It looks pretty crazy. Slight buff on farming. I like this. Overall, though, I don't think it'll have that big of an impact. If you factor in like the reduction from 6.83 back when it was like there was like 5 or 6 gold more per creep anyways, like it's still less until the 40-minute mark, and by then like gold is just much less significant than it is earlier on, comparatively, like percentage wise. Okay, and then this is an interesting thing. When it said siege damage against heroes, I thought it just meant siege catapults, but that's actually towers. So, you know, it says how much the tower tier 1 damage goes up. Makes it so towers are a little bit better at defending you in the early game, which makes it diving a little less appealing, which is nice. I think towers don't protect you enough, so it's not something that's like game chip breaking, but it definitely like tips the balance the other way, which is nice. They also base health pool is increased for all heroes. This is a nice buff for heroes like Luna and shit that have like um, really low base health, and a slight nerf to heroes that have high health like Spearbreaker. Just percentage base wise, like, you know, 30 is a lot more for somebody who has 440 than somebody who has 700. I like this change right here, as you can read it. Creeps now arrive slightly closer to the top Dire Tower and bottom Radiant Tower. That basically they're trying to kind of revert some of the changes that made the safe lane so hard for the safe lane team. So this will make it so that it's harder to offlane, making maybe this will change the meta back to the safe lane being the safer lane. Like, a lot of carries are not even in the safe lane this patch. I really like this random draft hero pool increased from 24 to 50, and they added it to ranked matchmaking. I'll probably be playing this a lot. Pretty much removes all hero spammers. I'm not really a hero spammer, so I really like this idea of getting rid of people that just pick the same hero every game, that pick like the OP shit every single game, whatever that may be in the next patch. So I really like this, and I'm excited to see it. That's pretty cool. These are two pretty massive changes, in my opinion. This is a massive change for the jungle and how stacks work. It makes it so that the small creep at the Centaur camp and the small creep at the Hellbear camp have a stacking aura of 20% resistances. I'm assuming it stacks multiplicatively or whatever. So, like, you know, the first one would be 20%, and the next one would make it 36%, and so on and so forth. Like 20% of the remaining 26%, or 20% of the remaining 80%. It kind of matters for like Chen, but it's only 5% for heroes. Kind of makes it okay for pushing with creeps, but it's not that big of a deal. I think it mainly just nerfs stacking. I think it's an indirect buff, or indirect massive nerf to heroes like Shadow Fiend, Lina, Leshrac, and a nice, huge indirect buff to heroes like Luna, Sven, Juggernaut, heroes that rely entirely on physical damage for farming. I think that's a pretty huge deal. Just stacking was the way that Magic nukers kind of came back really quickly, and or like got ahead really quickly, and now this could, I mean, it's stacking, so that's a pretty significant, like, from you may say it's only like the small creeps, but like having to go out of your way to kill the small creeps um, is definitely a significant reduction in farm speed. And then the Dragonhide auras stackable armor increased from 2 to 3. I'm sure that's on the ancients, um, which just makes ancient stacking even that much worse. They did remove one of their armor, but it makes all the other creeps have 1+ armor. And I like this. It makes it so it's split experience with all heroes in AoE. I don't actually know how much I like it, but I like the fact that they're just nerfing stacking in general. So it's making farming different, I guess. Like, this patch, in the last like 5 patches, have just been so heavily focused around stacking and like efficiency in that regard. So now I think efficiency is just going to be different, and like it's going to limit how many heroes can do ancients safely. It's going to limit Like, here it's going to buff heroes like Bounty Hunter, heroes that just want to scout around and take XP, and I really like that. I just like the fact that they're mixing it up. The new Ancient Black Dragon has an ability. I'm assuming he won't cast it, so this is only relevant towards Chen, Lifestealer, and I think that's it. Makes it's pretty ridiculous. It deals 85 damage a second in a 300 AoE for 10 seconds, so effectively it's an 850 damage DOT for 10 seconds. I looked at Dota Wiki, and it doesn't say that there's it says that the dragons actually have no mana, so maybe they're giving them mana, and it doesn't say on here how many they're giving them. So for all we know, they could only cast it once or twice, or for all we know, they have 500 mana and can cast this 5 times. That'd be pretty crazy. So it's a pretty long cast range. Maybe a significant buff to Lifestealer or Chen. If it's a lot of times you can cast it, it'd be a pretty significant buff to Lifestealer because he can farm safely inside of an Ancient Creep. But otherwise, for hero like Chen, it's obviously not until he gets an X. So it could make a difference in the late game. I'm not exactly sure. And then this is just a minor change to the Ancient. I'm guessing that's just meant for Chen or Lifesteal. I don't think it's nearly as big a deal as this one. And then Hill Troll Priest, that's one of the neutral one of the creeps that gives you a mana regen aura. I don't think the creep will really matter, but I mean makes Helm of the Dominator slightly better, I guess. Basically changed a bunch of the creeps in the jungle. I mean, you can kind of look that for yourself. I think all these changes are relatively minor. They only affect heroes like Chen and Enchantress. They're definitely buffs to those heroes, but I don't think I'm really in the right place to analyze how big of a difference that will actually make. I don't think this will matter very much either, and neither will this. It'll matter for lane stacking in the mid lane, or lane pulling. I think that's about all that will matter for. Otherwise, I don't really think it'll matter that much. Roshan's base armor is increased by 1. And basically what they did was they made it so his base attack time is lower, but his attack speed is increased. So what this does is it effectively makes it so that Roshan is half as affected by attack speed reductions like Sanj and Yasha, Tuskar Sigil, Scotty, etc. Which, like, I've talked about, like, in my games, if you've watched, like, where I play Slark, where, like, I would get Sanj and Yasha, and I knew I could do Rosh because Rosh only had 100 attack speed total, so then you'd maim him for 35 or whatever it is, like 30-something, and that's like a third of his attack speed, but now it's only a sixth of his attack speed, which makes it so it just limits certain heroes' potentials to do Rosh, and indirectly buffing heroes that doesn't stop from doing Rosh. Let's see. Okay, I like this. It's just a quality of life change. I hadn't actually read that one yet. This is kind of a single target. I don't know what it means, but I'm sure it's going to just be better. It doesn't say much about it. Minor change doesn't matter. I mean, they have no very minor experience boundary. I always just noticed that the towers. I mean, it's 25. Like, really, I just don't think it matters. I looked at this, relatively something like most people don't even look at. It's just a minor like armor change to a bunch of armor types, kind of simplifying it like they simplify composite damage. Very minor thing. So the terrain, I am going to ask chat if you can post a possible link if anybody has one. I was not able to find one of the new terrain. I could not find an image. So if somebody could possibly link me that'd be great. I mean, I'm not going to bother reading it all. It's not easy to visualize all these things. So if somebody can link that, I'll go back over it later. Pretty big deal for Alchemist. Level 1, he doesn't just instantly get a bottle. I think this will make him much weaker mid laner. He may still be viable, but I don't think he's nearly as good of a mid laner because of the fact that he just pretty much loses 200 gold at the start of the game. Obviously, he scales better late game, but that's not really what the hero wants to do. So, and then this is also a minor nerf. I don't know how much that really affected it, but I did notice that when I was playing my games, that it did. So it looks like somebody gave me an imager of a bunch of different spots on the map that got changed. Does anybody have... Okay, yeah, I'll use that. I'll use that later. Thank you. Zook and CU13. And then Bane got a minor move speed reduction. I don't really think it's enough for the hero. Obviously, if I'm not playing it, it's OP. I think he'll still be a strong support. Batrider got the Night Stalker treatment, just a better laner because of this, which is really nice for the hero because he's really weak right now, low base damage. Like a lot of his skills got nerfed level 1 and all that stuff. Flame Break mana, just slight problem for his mana. Makes it a much better 1-point wonder comparatively to what it used to be, but I don't know. I think Batrider will make a comeback just because of other heroes getting nerfed. Wild Axes no longer has unit targeting. I think that's just a quality of life thing, kind of like sometimes you'll just accidentally target a unit that you're not trying to get, and you can easily. It just makes it more consistent in whether not aiming it or not. So I like this buff to Beastmaster. I think he needs it. I think this buff to Bloodseeker will be completely irrelevant. I just don't understand how IceFrog thinks this is enough for the hero. That's pretty much all I have to say about that. This is very minor as well. I think Brewmaster is a pretty significant buff. The Drunken Haze cooldown is really good late game. I don't think he'll have that maxed until level at least 14 or 15. And then overall his ults is just better. The Dispel Magic is much more useful. That's the thing that like purges. And then this is all buffing the Blue Panda. It just makes the hero even better again. And I think with nerfs to other heroes, we may be seeing more Brewmaster. Heroes like Doombringer really owned this hero. With the removal of them, it's I think we'll be seeing more of this hero. He may even be in the offlane role, but maybe we'll see him mid. I'm not exactly sure. So they added a Scepter to Bristleback. Nasal Goo is no longer targeted. Instead, it's like, Terrorblade's Q, where it just applies in a 600 AoE around you. He still has a cast time on it. I wasn't sure, but I asked. If it didn't have a cast time, I think this would be a huge, really cool change, but the cast time makes it not quite as good. I think Bristleback wants other items than Scepter, so maybe it makes him better in combination with an Alchemist, and maybe it's a good 4th or 5th item. I imagine myself rather having a Sanjin Yasha or like a Crimson Guard or a BKB or like a Basher compared to this. Nasal Goo got the mana cost reduction, but the Quill Spray max damage could matter as well. Both of these things are relatively minor, but I think the hero will make a comeback based on item buffs I'll be talking about later. Spawn Spiderling, slight nerf damage on the nuke. I think she needs it, but Broodmother will still be viable, I think. Centaur Warrunner, just another increase in return damage. I don't think that really matters that much. Reality Rift bonus damage is increased. I think Chaos Knight's problem is farming, and I just don't think it's been addressed. So maybe it'll be surprised, but I just still think the hero's irrelevant. But maybe, I can always be wrong. Chen, we already know about the jungle creep buffs, so I think that naturally makes him better, along with Enchantress. Junglers prior to this patch were pretty much out of the meta. Like, I don't think we saw a single Enchantress Chen pick ever. Maybe like a couple in TI, but base strength was increased for him, making him tankier, especially with the 30 health for all heroes. Penitence mana cost, that's really nice for him. It's kind of like the Bane treatment, just make it so level 1 he doesn't have such mana problems. And yeah, so that's pretty cool. Obviously, you don't really get Penitence level 1, but it makes it so that early stages he doesn't have as many mana problems. Maybe doesn't need to rush Arcanes or something like that. Hard for me to know exactly because I don't play the hero. Nice buff for Clinks, but we'll see if it's enough. I think there's other things in this patch that matter more for him, but that's nice. There's a minor buff for Clockwork. I think he needs something, but I don't know exactly what this circle looks like. I don't know how much of a difference it makes. Should be interesting though, but I can't really analyze that one. Another minor buffs to Crystal Maiden. A lot of her buffs in the last few patches have just been minor numbers tweaks, like not changing anything about the hero, just cooldown reductions, more damage, whatever it is, they keep buffing it. So I think we're going to be seeing her more with other heroes getting nerfed too, and like Wyvern being removed from Captain's Mode. Like, I think Crystal Maiden has viability. I think it's hard to find a lane for her. So if jungling becomes more popular, maybe we'll see more of her. But of course, the stacking or the aura from other creeps might nerf her as well. It's really hard to project that as of now. Nice buff to the aura though. But of course, that's something that maybe we'll see people maxing out aura more often. But it's not like if it was like scaling more from level 1, it'd make a big difference. But I don't think it's nearly as big of a difference because it's only at max level. They nerfed Darkseer's intelligence again. He's just getting stupider and stupider. In the last 2 patches, he's been killed by Silencer at the start of the game. Each patch. So it's just something that makes it so he has slightly bigger mana problems, slightly weaker laner. In the late stages of the game, I don't think it matters at all. I mean, he never right-clicks, so it all comes down to his mana pool. And like after he gets Greaves, nobody's going to notice that 2-int, but in the early stages, with the last hitting in lane and stuff, is the damage as well as the mana pool. I think it definitely matters. And the Ion Shell's purgeable. I don't know how much that'll matter. Diffusal, I mean, how often are you actually trying to purge somebody with Ion Shell on them? But, you know, it's a minor nerf again. Buffing Poison Touch, I like that because nobody ever skills it, really. Makes Dazzle... All these changes, none of this makes him a weaker laner. But, like, going Poison Touch, like, when you're level 3, you have 2 points heal, 1 point Poison Touch. The hero's actually better than he was before, right? Which I think one of the scariest things about Dazzle, amongst other things, is the fact that he's just so good against melee heroes in lane. And so against melee cores, I think Dazzle will still be really strong, but with the other nerfs, he might not be a first pick anymore. They made it so cast time on Shallowgrave's worse, and the mana cost is much higher for the hero. But level 1, which is like mainly when it matters, like early game, when that extra mana is going to matter, it's barely any higher. I didn't realize it actually went down in mana cost, so I don't think that would be as much of a difference. I think the biggest thing is that the Weave no longer provides the 800 flying vision. You see it a lot in professional. A lot of people use it to scout out. Information gathering is one of the most important things in Dota. Walking up high ground and knowing you can just fucking weave to see everybody is a pretty huge deal. Like using that on any hero is pretty ridiculous. So I think that's by far the biggest nerf to Dazzle. I think he'll still be viable, but we'll be seeing a lot less of him. They completely reworked Death Prophet's passive. Basically removed it and gave her a Razor static link that instead drains health over the course of 4 seconds. So she has charges on it. It looks really weird. I think the fact that there's charges and the hero wants to build Octarine, that this could be pretty legit because Octarine now works on charges, which you'll see later. Low mana cost. The only problem is it's like really close range. So it says like the Spirit Link breaks at a 300 distance, but its cast range is 500. So I don't exactly understand that, but it seems like it's a point-blank thing. It's really good for her if she's already ulting, but when she doesn't have her ulti on, there's no reason that she would want to be close in. She doesn't offer anything by being close to somebody. Maybe this will make it more appealing, but I think unless she has her ulti going off, that this doesn't really make much sense. For me, the real big question is how bad the cast animation on it is. If there's like hardly any cast animation, or there is one, or like hardly is one, or isn't one at all, then this could be a really sick ability. But if she has to like stop to cast it, kind of like Razor, if she has to like do it over and over again with the charges, like there's never going to be a time she's like using it more than once, right? So, and I don't know if you can use it more than once on the same hero, like if they stack. It does not clarify that. Oh, cannot be affected by multiple instances. Okay, never mind. So yeah, that's nice. Didn't think that question. I thought that question was going to be answering about the charges. And since they took away her passive, it gives her movement speed and all the cooldowns and shit. They removed all that. Like they nullified that. You know, Quip Storm just goes down in cooldown every level now, and her base movement speed is much higher, which is very good for her level 1. Her silence cooldown goes down. Her exorcism sphere count is increased. And then exorcism spawn rate decreased from 1 ghost per 0.1 seconds to 0.3 seconds. So I guess that means her ghosts come out slower, so that looks like a minor nerf. Overall, she's out of captain's mode, but I like the changes. I think it's a cool rework. I mean, her pass is just kind of boring, right? So instead they removed it and made her a different hero entirely, I think, which is cool. Like, it may only be like one ability, but the fact that like you're changing her movement speed level 1 and all that shit changes a lot about the hero. So look forward to seeing her come back. Rip Doom. Started this analysis. They replaced level death with basically it seems like an auto attack passive autocast ability that mini stuns for 3.3 seconds, kind of like level death mini stuns. It applies a damage over time that deals a lot of magic damage, and it has a low cooldown, which is really cool and all when it's maxed out. And maybe this will be super good. But if it's like I said, you have to be meleeing the person. Like that's like level death was nice because it had a decent. It's not a good cast. It wasn't like an amazing cast range, but like you could just be using it while you're chasing somebody down. And now they made Doom have the worst base attack time in the game. Um, I mean, items like AC are much worse. Like his laning stage is much worse. Like his attack animation. Scorched Earth got nerfed again. Movement speed got nerfed. Doom cooldown got increased. I think overall, like, unless this ability is just crazy that I just can't see it. I mean, obviously it deals 20% of max HP plus 40 over, plus 160 over 4 seconds. I mean, it could be good for all I know, but I think a lot of these nerfs are just like, I mean, I don't know why with heroes like Doom, it's always like they're either irrelevant or like OP as balls, so. I mean, obviously we're not going to see any of them in captain's mode, but I look forward to seeing if he's actually going to be relevant when he does come back. Pretty big buff for Dragonite, laning stage, mid game. I mean, just having that extra regen will make him much better sustain at all stages of the game, especially in the early to mid game, which is really nice. And then minor buff to his Elden Dragon form as well on the last one. So not as big of a deal, but makes his late game even better. I think the hero needed it. I think Drow's going to be much better this patch, but I think her Ag Scepter is relatively irrelevant. It makes Marksmanship now causes her attacks to splinter and split into 2 arrows affecting 2 random units. So it's basically like giving her splash damage on 2 extra units, like kind of like a Medusa a bit. And like except for you do get the attack modifiers. I just don't see that being worth 4K gold. Like I'd rather have SNY, BKB, Manta, like most of a butterfly. I mean, it doesn't give all that much agi, so I just don't see that being what the hero needs. But maybe I'll be proved wrong. Hype or spirits out in captain's mode. His intelligence was reduced. Boulder smash, stun, AoE reduced. That's pretty significant out of all these. The most significant nerf is the fact that geomagnetic grip. I was actually thinking this. I literally said this to my team like last week. If they add him, they better do this. You can only pull allied heroes when using Scepter. So, no more saving people from random shit just by pushing a button. So, I think the hero will have viability, mainly as a roaming support because rolling boulder is so strong level 1. And I think he offers a lot to the team even without the ability to save his teammates. But I think he'll only be viable in the capable hands of like the best Earth Spirit players out there, people like Jerax. I think it's one of those heroes where you have to be either really good at him or you're just not going to pick him. But I think he'll be like a targeted ban, kind of like IO for certain teams. Excited to see it though. Elder Titan's ult actually scales now. Pretty crazy. Late game potential, 50% fucking health and damage. Mana cost, doesn't really matter. Minor buff there as well, but I think this is pretty huge. It makes his late game just that much better. So maybe he'll come back as like an offlaner. Fire Remnants no longer give vision. I think this is a nice nerf for Ember. I really like that they didn't just butcher the hero. I think he was strong, but not too strong. So I like this. Makes him mostly weaker around the Rosh pit. Otherwise, if you're laying remnants in camps, laying them in trees behind you, I don't think it's nearly as big of a deal. But now you can camp as remnants without him knowing. How much that'll really affect the hero, I don't think it'll be that much. But mostly around the Rosh pit, I think that's when that matters. Enchant cooldown reduced. I don't think that's that big of a deal because you're only going to see really the major effects of it at level 4. Eidolon movement speed, but you did see that she's going to get buffed in the jungle camps by the creeps getting buffed with damages and resistances and stuff, so maybe she'll come back into the meta. Eidolon movement speed, I like that. They're slow as balls, so it's nice to see. Malefice damage, slight increase. Black hole cooldown, scales better even now. I think if jungler, it really comes down to our junglers going to be any good. Is there going to be room in the laning stage for junglers? And if the answer is yes, I think Enigma, Enchantress, and Chen will be very viable picks. If not, they'll be basically irrelevant like they are now. So we've removed the ability to skill track with Faceless Void. No more dodging Laguna Blades and Lion Fingers and stuff like that. You now have a new active ability that applies a debuff to all nearby enemies in a 650 AoE for 6, 7, 8, 9 seconds. Causes time to be frozen on all enemy abilities. Basically make it so that their cooldowns don't continue counting down. Slows movement speed and attack speed by 4, 6, 8, 10% for each locked ability. That's pretty cool. I'm assuming that it's 10% per each hero. Like each hero is treated separately, meaning like if there's 5 heroes around and all of them have 2 abilities blocked, they're not all 100% slowed, they're all 20% slowed. I'm assuming that's how it works. So, most heroes would have a max of 40% unless you're, something like Invoker. Or not Invoker, I guess he wouldn't be. Maybe like Doom with an extra creep or Chen maybe. But for the most part, 40% would be the max slow for attack speed and movement speed. And it's a low mana cost, but of course the hero still has, like, you're just adding another ability that costs mana, and they didn't reduce the Chronosphere cost. So I don't know if I mean, maybe Battle Fury will be more viable for him. Obviously he's not in Captain's mode, but maybe you'll have to build more mana items. Time Walk no longer slows units. Time Walk now undoes any damage taken in the last 2 seconds. That's pretty crazy. I mean, it's one of those now, if you don't burst him down, he basically has a miniature Weaver time lapse. They made it so it's on a 6-second cooldown. Like, that's pretty nuts at the max level. And it has a really low mana cost, which is nice because it solves kind of some of the problems, and it basically makes up for this 50 mana cost because of that. But it's also very spammable, like 6 seconds. I kind of treat it as like a Slark Pounce that doesn't, like, instead of being used aggressively, can be used defensively. You can use it aggressively to chase, but it's only 550 range. So that's why I said it's like a Slark Pounce, relatively low range ability. But it obviously, like, this could be insane. I mean, this could be game breaking in Captain's mode. We'll really have to see how it goes. The thing is that it really hinders his ability to initiate, and they didn't give him anything that does damage anywhere in here. So the hero still suffers from that, and nothing addressed his cooldown problems. So I mean, unless the meta shifts really hard, I just don't see him being viable still. But maybe this will make him viable over Backtrack. Call down reduced in the early game, still scales to the same thing late game. I think the hero will still be seen just because of his presence in lane, as well as his high mid-game damage. This is the moment everyone was laughing about earlier. I haven't really been playing Huskar much this patch, even though he's considered strong this patch. I mean, I think that this is just Ice Frog taking it too far. If you're gonna nerf one of a hero's abilities that kind of defines the hero so significantly, and then provide him with nothing else, like no buff, then, like, I think the hero was super strong because of just the fact that his magic immunity or magic resistance made him very tanky to a lot of the magic damage heroes that are popular. And, like, now that you've removed that, it's like I just don't see him doing much. It could be really good still with Dazzle and Oracle, but for the most part, I mean, I just don't think Huskar is any good right now. He's bad against high physical damage, and now he's very weak against early. I mean, or level 1, that's like half as good, like not even half. That's pretty nuts. So, rip Huskar, I think. But for all I know, I said that he wouldn't be very relevant in 6.84, but I just don't know why you would nerf a hero this much and then give him nothing in return. Like, didn't buff any of his other abilities. So I think he'll be very bad. Invoker now starts with Invoke level 1. Pretty huge. Level 1 Cold Snap, level 1 Sunstrike, whatever it may be. Pretty huge for his level 1 capabilities, especially at rune fights. And now he has a standard 6, 11, 16 leveling on his ult. And level 25 Invoker now has an attribute that grants all 6 to all stats. Um, it's not the most relevant thing, but going in the late game helps him scale. Still weak against BKBs. But I think the biggest thing that my teammate pointed out about this is that now if you go Wex, Exort, Invoker, level 2 you can have it instead of level 3. So pretty much after the first creep wave, or first 2 creeps, you'll have 30, I think, bonus damage from Alacrity, which is pretty insane for his laning. I think this will make him one of the strongest laners in the mid lane, and we may be just seeing a ton of Invoker. I'm not really sure, but that is pretty nuts. That's my only comment really on that one. Jakiro made a lot stronger of a support here, maybe even stronger as a core, as like an offlane core in a dual lane or something. 7 damage is a lot, so we've seen it happen on other heroes, and I expect maybe comeback of Jakiro. Minor buff to the cooldown reduction, the buff duration, and so basically what it looks like is that if you have 300 mana on a hero, Coddle no longer, like if you're sitting at 300 mana, it doesn't just give you, like it wouldn't just, before it wouldn't do anything, but now it would actually make you go up to, it's like soul ringing at full mana. You'd like now go from 300 to 600 max mana for 15 seconds, which is pretty crazy for certain heroes I could see, because you could just expend 300 mana, and then like once the effect wears off, you'll just be at full mana when it comes off, which would be pretty cool. I think that's a cool buff to the hero. I don't know how relevant he will be, though. Added Scepter to Kunkka. Ghost Ship now drags enemies to like kind of like a miniature vacuum. It's kind of weird, but it says it now starts from where you are rather than behind you, lands in the same position as it normally have. You're still being able to be pulled. They said it treats it like, or you're still able to perform actions, treat it like Drow Silence. Should be interesting. I mean, the hero, I think if he's a core, would rather have damage items than if he's a support. Not really going to farm in ags. So, yeah, that's my opinion on that. Torrent now gives vision where you place it, which is pretty cool. You can be used for scouting much more effectively. This is something I think he really needed, and I've talked about in the past. Kunkka now can toggle whether or not he wants to use his Tidebringer. Makes him maybe a viable safe lane carry, maybe a stronger mid hero, depending. I don't think it matters for a support Kunkka, but maybe we'll be able to see more core Kunkka now. Minor changes there, and minor changes there. I think all these things are a little bit of buffs on Kunkka, and it's like eventually he's going to be relevant. So maybe I think this one mainly might push him over the edge. Minor buff to Legion Commander's passive, and now duel makes it so that you don't take damage from anything, or Scepter now makes it so duel, you take no damage from any outside sources, either of you. So it makes it so pretty much Legion Commander will never really lose a duel. Very few heroes can beat Legion Commander in a duel just based on physical damage. Like Ursa's one of them, maybe Jug, maybe SF, but SF did get nerfed pretty hard. And now it's no longer infinite. It just makes it a longer duration. Still a significant chunk of time. You can be disabled though. It might make this like a super good late game item. But I just, if you have a lot of damage, but I like mid game, I'd rather have a BKB, stuff like that. So I just don't think it, and she doesn't really farm very fast. So yeah, I don't think it'll matter that much. The hero may just be better in this meta, but the big thing is, and I'll be talking about it later, is the buff to range heroes in general with some of the new items. Makes it so heroes like Legion Commander that are vulnerable to kiting, are inherently indirectly nerfed. So we have nice level 1 early buffs to Lifestealer, slight buffs to his feast damage and lifesteal, and I think another big one is his infest cooldown. 50 seconds is significantly less than 100, obviously, so that's really good for him that it scales better now. And obviously the Ancient Dragon can be pretty good based on however much mana it may have. And then, I think the hero still kind of sucks, but because of the kiting problems and laning stage and everything like that. But maybe this will be enough. The rage plus this, like all of his abilities are just better, but I still think he's not very good. Earth Spike, like just a bunch of like just minor numbers buffs to Lion. I like it. I think the hero's relatively weak right now, so just giving him a little bit of extra on everything is nice. Didn't rework the hero. I don't think he needed it. So they replaced Lone Druid's passive with an ability that causes. It's basically like a fear. I've heard of these in like the League of Legends, where any units around you are forced to run away from you. In this AOE, they're forced to run away from you towards their fountain. I wonder if there's going to be some clowny shit that forces them to like run into your tower or something if they're behind your tower or something. It'd be pretty funny. But it's on a decently low cooldown with a low mana cost on a hero that doesn't really have mana problems. Makes it so an entangled hero will no longer attack you. It doesn't say that, but like the hero will be trying to run away, but they won't be able to. So it looks like you can use the ability from your Spirit Bearer, but that's kind of cool. Should be interesting. And then just like with Death Prophet, they removed a passive and then fixed all the things necessary to replenish the passive. Like gives the bear more damage and stuff. And Rabid duration just goes up instead of being at the flat 10, and then based on your passive how much it increases, which is nice. And then they also made it so that in his true form he gains significantly more health in the late stages, in the mid game, especially at level 2 ultimate. Like the difference between level 1 and the new level 1 is not very big, but once you hit level 2 you really see it. He's obviously not in captain's mode, but it's talking about 6.86 BC, so we could still be seeing him very soon based on how balanced they view him as. Turn rate's a very significant thing that a lot of people overlook in Dota, so buffing it is a nice thing for Luna, especially when she's such a fast hero, and then turning around to beam somebody can always be really nice if they're chasing after you. So making her do that faster is a nice little buff for her. And then her scepter is pretty, like, basically just doubles how fast she puts the damage out. Might be pretty insane. I honestly want to try it myself. So basically, you no longer get critical strike from your Lycan Wolves and Shapeshift, but your Lycan Wolves have a cripple, kind of like a maim, making them take damage per second and losing attack speed. Not a slow though, which I think doesn't really offer much. If it was a slow, like a movement speed slow, I think it'd be good. But it makes them better at like manning up with the wolves. But I don't think that's like what the hero needs. And then now it grants all units your ult, gives all your units a chance to crit. I don't know. I just feel like they like changed Lycan, but for me, it doesn't view it as anything better. And I think the hero wasn't very good, and he's susceptible to kiting, like I said. So with heroes that are susceptible to that, will be weaker. So then we have Magnus, gave him a scepter, changes in power to be an allied hero aura, affects ranged heroes for half values, and causes them to deal splash damage around the target. So basically, everyone around Magnus now has cleave, but Magnus kind of wants to sit in the back, not hitting anything, or like not being near the team because he wants to be ready to initiate. I mean, I'm assuming it's 900 aura, just like most other 900 AoE. I mean, it's pretty crazy. I'm wondering if it still has an active. Looks like it's just an aura though, but it's like if it's just an aura, I feel like it would have to still have an active on it, because if it was like made to be just an aura, that'd be a pretty huge nerf, because like you can't just empower somebody and let them go farm. Like it'd just be stupid. Why would you ever buy one? So I'm assuming they're still inactive. Skewer distance slightly buffed at the early stages. Skewer slow is reduced though, but the duration was increased at all levels, or as you scale it. So nice little buffs to Magnus. I don't think he really needed much. I think we've been seeing a little bit more of him. His laning stage is relatively weak, but we may be seeing him more off lane than mid, depending on what heroes are really popular mid. Medusa. Basically, you steal a percentage of total mana, which is pretty insane. When it comes to jungling, you just get all your mana back. When it comes to late game, stealing int heroes mana, that's pretty that could be pretty game changing. It makes her late game better and her early game slightly weaker. So if I recall, range creeps have 500 mana, so she'll be stealing percentage of that when she's stealing from range creeps. I think that's more at the max level than it would be otherwise. Little interesting changes. Meepo, nerf all the cancer heroes apparently. Double damage only works on your main Meepo now, so minor nerf there. Attack range, or whatever Meepo picks it up, I guess. Attack range increased for Mirana, maybe making her a better laner. Really depends. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe mid lane or safe lane. Starstorm, but she still has very weak base damage. Starstorm radius slightly increased, so she like all these things making it so she's more of a ranged hero, meaning she doesn't have to get into the middle of the fight. She doesn't want to be there, so giving her a little bit extra range on everything is really nice. And then Sacred Arrow now instantly kills the first unit it hits if it's a non-ancient creep. Insta-gibbing heroes. No, I'm kidding. It's pretty cool for farming jungle. Maybe she's like another version of Crystal Maiden now, roaming around the map, using her arrow to farm creeps. Of course, she doesn't have an aura that gives her more mana, as well as the fact that she doesn't provide her team with anything by not being in lane. So I don't know though. Maybe she'll be. I really don't know. I think the buffs are nice, and we'll kind of just see where she lands in the meta. Probably gonna have to be a Mirana player like Sing Sing to make it really work. Nice buff to Adaptive Strike, mana cost reduction. He's a hero that has a lot of mana problems, so this is something that's very nice. Scales better in the late game. Morph rate was increased pretty significantly. Like instead of going by semi-linear progression, it's just doubling. Makes it so that it's smoother shift intervals. Overall, I think just a lot of numbers tweaking for Morphling make him just slightly better in the numbers perspective, which makes him more viable. So we'll see. I think he's also a hero that could be significantly affected by the new item, the Dragon Lance, but I'm not sure just because he's such a low ranged hero. Base intelligence increased for Naga, makes her slightly better support, even slightly better carry. I still don't think she'll be very good though, but maybe she'll come back as a support. I think Nature's Prophet's one of the biggest heroes in this patch coming up. Both of these things increase his landing stage potential significantly. When you think about stout shields, if it blocks for like 16 or whatever it is, you now do, instead of 12 damage, you do 16. That's like a 33% damage increase from the Treants. Makes him take towers slightly faster. After the move speed buff last patch, they can chase down most heroes that don't have boots. Level 1. I think he'll be quite a nuisance in the offlane. Admiral Bulldoge got one of his hero removed and the other one significantly buffed. Necrophos base armor increased by 1. Yay. Slight nerf to Night Stalker. Not that big of a deal, but makes it so like you usually max void anyway. So Impale for Nyx, slightly buffed, as well as I think this carapace cooldown much more important. I always wondered why they have these weird numbers, by the way. Like, it makes sense, like, finally they're making all these numbers. Oh, I didn't even notice the level 1 is actually significantly higher. Good for him. I think the hero needs it. And then the Spike Carapace cooldown max level is pretty significantly lower, which, I think it's like a 2.5 second active. Like, it lasts for 2.5 seconds, so making it like that uptime is pretty nuts when you compare those two numbers. Octarine Core Nyx, even is more insane now. Ogre basically has a free Heart of Tarrasque level 1. At least 5 patches from now, I think that's what he's going to have. We got Oracle in Captain's Mode. All of his abilities have been reworked. I always forget which ones are which. I know what all of his abilities do. This it looks like Fate's Edict is the one that disarms. Made it so the cooldown is higher at level 1, but significantly lower at max level. Makes it not last as long, though, at the higher levels. Still think it's better, though, scaling-wise. Cast range, it basically just makes it so it used to kind of be like, why would you level it more than once or twice? But now it just scales much better. Fortune's End mana cost, reduced from 130 to 110. That's his first ability, the one that locks people in place. Fortune's End can now target allies. I'm assuming it kind of works like a Lotus Orb, meaning like it purges like Sheepstick and stuff. Maybe like a Diffusal Blade. I'm assuming that's how it works. So I'm assuming it's like an Abaddon shield. I'm not exactly sure. I don't think it purges stuns, but I think it... So maybe not an Abaddon shield. I really don't know how this will work. It's interesting, though. I'd like to see it. I think it's a really low cooldown now after the change from last patch. Like I think it's like 6 second cooldown at max level or something like that. So this could be pretty nuts. They made it so you basically... You couldn't be stunned for the entire duration of his ultimate, but now it makes it so it only dispels at the initial cast, so it's like an Abaddon shield on a super long cooldown that significantly gets reduced with levels and lasts a little bit longer and costs less mana, but obviously it's a nerf to the hero. All these heroes they're adding into Captain's Mode, they've taken the save approach with Earth Spear, with Oracle, they've just nerfed him a bunch. think the hero definitely is a little bit too strong with this, but he may still work with really well with Huskar, and I think he's a strong laner per se because of the nuke damage from his E and the lockdown from his Q. Maybe using Q from Fog, stuff like that. They completely reworked Outworld Devourers and Astral Imprisonment. They made it so it no longer steals int, but instead, once you come out of it, it always lasts 4 seconds. And it can be targeted on creeps, and it does damage in an AoE. Basically, this allows Outworld Devourer to wave clear to some extent, obviously on a 4-second delay. And I'd say farm creep camps, but at the same time, he... Like, with the change to the magic resist, I don't know how much that will matter. But I really like that they gave this hero a chance to farm. Like, I just think a lot of heroes that have no farming potential have very limited viability in Dota in general. So I really like to see that. They changed the cooldown a little bit, cast range, duration's always 4, like I said. Slight nerf, not really a big deal. And now they're making him a, intelligence version of Slark. So instead of getting your intelligence from your Astral Imprisonment, which in the late game was kind of semi-unreliable, this makes his laning stage weaker, in my opinion, like much weaker. But I don't think anybody enjoyed the old OD laning. Like, why would you want to lane against a hero that just takes all your mana away? It's like... Nobody enjoys that shit, alright? So I really like that, IceFrog decided to remove a lot of the cancer aspects of heroes in this patch. But yeah, you're basically an Essence Shift Slark but it only lasts for 40 seconds. Pretty cool. I think it'll give him a lot more viability late game. But I'm not sure how much he really auto attacks. Like, he usually wants to 5-hit you to death, so. And it doesn't last like long enough to go longer than a fight. It's only going to last for whatever fight you're taking a part in. But then they slightly reduce his int growth as well. I think this is completely irrelevant. The hero doesn't really have mana problems, but maybe I'm wrong. Sun rate, turn rate slightly increased, and the damage from Supernova increased on the late game. I don't think the damage at that point is really that big of a deal, but Phoenix is still a decent hero and very situational, and I think we'll be seeing it. Very significant buff to Puck here. Makes it so that its illusory orb is no longer constant value at 150, but at level 1 it instead costs almost half as much, or like a little bit over half. That's pretty insane for that hero, I think. Obviously, they increased the cooldown, but I'd much rather have the ability be used twice as many times with a 3-second longer cooldown. So nice buff to Puck. And with nerfs to other mids, such as Shadow Fiend, I think Puck will be seeing a lot more play, I expect at least. And no longer silences creeps. And slight cooldown reduction, which is nice. I don't think this will really matter that much, but maybe against Chin and Enchantress, maybe. So basically, the Pudge Scepter now makes it so your meat hook is 4-second cooldown, and it increases the damage to 475. That's pretty nuts. I think the biggest thing about this is that they did this per se, but the fact that Dismember now is a percentage of your strength, and it heals without the Ags. I think that this makes Pudge just better, and I think the hero might actually see play. I actually think we might see Pudge play. As weird as that sounds. His late game's pretty insane with this. And plus this, if he actually wants to buy it. But even without this, it's pretty insane with just the strength percentage. Assuming he gets any decent amount of flesh heaps, I did the calculations. Like at level 6, if he has no strength items, then he'll do 72 damage per second. So in that like level 16 with no strength items and no flesh heap, it's like 150. So it's like you're assuming he's going to have some sort of strength items or flesh heap. So in general, it's going to be more damage, and he's healing. I think the healing's a pretty big part, especially in the early to mid game. Pugna no longer just slows allies with Decrepify. I think this hero's kind of on the verge, but he's just bad against heroes like Doom and stuff who got nerfed, like in the laning stage, and Slardar. So maybe this will open up the chance for Pugna, not because of this buff, but because of the nerf to other heroes. And maybe we'll see him as a support, like somebody I saw mentioned. More linear progression on Quap Scream, minor nerf at level 1 and 2, not that big of a deal. Sonic Wave travels slightly slower. I don't think this will affect that hero very much, but obviously every little nerf matters. I'm sure we'll still see her quite a bit. Riki basically got completely reworked. Invisibility fade time gets reduced. It used to be 2 seconds at max level, now it's 3. But it also gives you backstab damage. So it's like, uh, it's nice because you want to max backstab, but at the same time, it made it so you were kind of useless. Like, you want to max invis to have regen, but you wanted to max backstab. So now you can just do both. I think that's pretty obviously the ability you want to max. But he has his Blink Strike back with no charges, but the 4-second cooldown instead of the 5 that he used to have before they made it have charges. And then this is insane. It's like a fucking Juggernaut ulti on 450 AoE around him. I'm assuming, yeah, I was going to say, it's just like you just have to push the button. It doesn't have to be like facing anything. It's just a cast point. It's like all these things are nice. Like, it's a pretty crazy ultimate. Like, you'll hit everyone once per second. That's how it works. He attacks once when phasing out and then once per second. So I guess it'd be 4, 5, 6 attacks, and you can stop it whenever you want. You're basically like a PL doppelganger, like you're off the map, which is cool. But like, it makes him no longer a constant fighter. It makes him like operate on a cooldown, which I don't think Ricky wants. And he's obviously out of captain's mode, but like they reduced all of his stat growth, and his base armor is reduced. They basically made him shit. Like, remember, he has a 40 damage level 1. Obviously he'll get backstab with his invis, but he no longer has the regen. So I just see him being such a shit laner that it just doesn't matter. All these things are cool, and maybe I'll be proved wrong. And I like that they're reworking him, but if they still leave him with like the 42 base damage, I just don't see how he's viable. I just don't see it. But we'll see. It's exciting to see changes to heroes we've seen. Slight buff to Rubik. Cool change to Sand King. Makes it so the old Scepter wasn't really that great. This new one doubles Burrow Strike cast range. Pretty nuts. And then applies Caustic Finale poison to heroes when you Burrow Strike them. We were talking about it might be a replacement for Blink, but it's just more expensive than Blink, so I wouldn't be surprised by a Blink Ags build now, but Force Staff might still just be better. I mean, it makes his initiation range crazy, so, and it now has kind of like a lingering slow with the Caustic Finale. I'm interested to see it. I don't know how much it'll be picked up. Slightly better in the early game, and increase the slow for Caustic Finale, which is nice, synergetic with the ultimate as well. Nice buff to Shadow Demon. Pretty much makes him just better against agility carries in the mid to late game. The illusions hit pretty hard. I think they hit for like 70% damage or something. So yeah, they just last longer now. You can. It also makes him good with illusion carries, like for sieging. Last for 12 seconds now. Like, you just disrupt your Juggernaut and send his illusions on the tower for 12 seconds. They hit pretty hard. So nice buff to the hero. Shadow Fiend Aghanims now does this. I'm not even going to bother reading it. I just don't think it's very good. It makes it do 40% extra damage on the way back, and it's like most of his damage is if the heroes are point blank. I just don't see this like ever being worth buying. They made his armor reduced, and Shadow Race mana was increased. I think the biggest nerf to Shadow Fiend, other than this, is the fact that all the efficiency of nuking camps that are stacked has been nerfed. So, like, what would usually take 3 raises may take 4 or 5, depending on what creep camps you got. So I think the hero is going to be irrelevant, honestly. I think that plus the camps just makes the hero that much worse. Heroes that don't rely on magic damage to farm are just going to be better. Alchemist. Heroes like Sven. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We'll see. I'm excited to have Shadow Fiend not be every game, but I do think the hero's fun to watch, so I don't really want to see him be irrelevant. But I think this is pretty significant nerfs. Slight buff to Shadow Shaman here, but the biggest thing is that Mass Serpent Wards require 2 hits to destroy. Before, like, unless you're like a Crystal Maiden, they pretty much always took only 2 hits max. So I think this is a pretty nice buff to the hero. Late game, it would only take 1. This hero might actually be ridiculously OP for this reason now. Like in the late stages of the game, I always remember like I wanted to get to above 150 damage on like a sniper or like range carry or whatever I'm playing, to eat away the wards really quickly. But now you can't do that. It takes literally twice as many hits to kill them, which just makes his like it just makes it that much more annoying to deal with. I think the hero is going to be one of the strongest supports in my mind. For all I know, he could become a mid with the changes to other heroes. Then we have Silencer. For basically replaces first ability with something that doesn't silence you, but it makes it so that you get a debuff for 7 seconds that does this much damage. And every time you use an ability during that debuff, it adds another 4 seconds. So really annoying for casters. And I'm assuming it still gets I'm assuming it still gets applied if you have an Aghanims. It's like since it replaced Curse of the Silent. It's interesting. It makes it so that it works on creeps though. So this hero now has a way to actually farm creep waves semi-efficiently, which I think people will be maxing this first now. I just don't see why you wouldn't. At max level, it's to a creep wave. It's 245 damage over time. I mean, it's like an Ember Shield kind of, like it's just a little bit of damage over time. Relatively low cooldown. So it's pretty spammable on creep waves. I really like this. Gives the hero some farming potential. Obviously, he kind of has sort of mana issues with how much that costs, but yeah, I think the hero is going to be really good as a mid or safe lane. All these changes to him do not buff him as a support; they buff him as a carry. So I think that's what they're looking to do with that hero. Skywrath Mage, slight buff. Slardar got the Bounty Hunter treatment. Pretty big nerf here, but the hero still has the ridiculous laning presence still, and heroes like Dazzle can still be combined with him. And Wyvern was one of his hardest counters in my opinion, so with her being removed, I think the hero will still be viable and relevant. Slight buff to Urge Storm Spirit, still think he's bad though. Sven, I think, is going to be one of the strongest carries in this patch. Base damage, I think he hits for like 68 or something now with no items. It's pretty crazy, something like that, maybe 66. Minor buff here, but I think with the nerf to other heroes and the base damage increase, like I just think he's going to be one of the stronger laning carries. And like I said, the nerf to magic damage stack farming. And a lot of other heroes that do ancients require a lot of time to do them, so it's easy to like smoke and contest them. But with Sven, if he ults, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but he literally like 4 shots ancient stacks. It's pretty nuts, so I think heal will just be better at that, and we may be seeing a lot more of him. Refraction is now always visible. It's one of those where you can only see it if you were hitting them, but now if you can just see that it's active, which is really nice. I think that's a minor nerf, but I just like it better that way. Terrorblades in Captain's Mode, don't really think we'll be seeing him much, because his main fighting ability doesn't help him farm at all, but maybe I'm wrong. Nice Ag Scepter change to Tidehunter gives him a nice tidal wave from Gush, 1800 range, kind of like a boulder or like a remnant from Earth Spirit. You shoot it forward, and it does all the slows and armor reduction that Gush would normally do. But you're paying 4,200 gold for that. It's a cooldown of 7, which is nice and all. I don't know. Maybe it's a good late game item. I have no idea. I just don't see it making that much of a difference. Slight buff to Anchor Smash and Ravage Stun. But yeah, pretty much a minor nerf to Ravage Stun, actually. It's pretty much nothing. It's just making them not really freaking weird numbers. Whirling buff, debuff duration, the thing that removes like 15% of your main attribute, was increased. That's really nice for his laning stage, I think, and for team fights in the late game. And then the mana cost is just a flat 70. I mean, less mana problems for a hero that is completely mana intensive. Really nice for him. And then reactive duration, slightly lower level 1, but then it's better all the other levels. So with nerfs to other heroes, maybe we'll be seeing more Timbersaw, or Sumail's already showing that hero is viable. Laser cast time improved for Tinker, and the range makes his laning better. Obviously, other stages are improved, but I think that primarily from the laning perspective. But once again, like he got nerfed pretty hard by the fact that jungle camps now take less damage from March when they're stacked. We'll see. I think it'll affect him though. Crag exterior now triggers on attacks landing rather than on the start. I talked about this on my stream the other day. Huge change. I just lost a game yesterday. largely upon the fact that I got craggied right before I hit him with a Silver Edge. So this makes it so that like Silver Edge can completely counter Tiny because it just removes Craggy instead of having that 25% chance to just get boned, which is nice. And then Treant Protector, mana cost reduction, which is nice, especially level 1. Slight increase on overgrowth AoE, and as well as his damage and vision from the trees that he puts in, which is really nice. I think that hero is really obnoxious, but I think he needed something. So basically, they reduce how much attack speed you get from Fervor, but they increase the max stacks, makes him better against like Rosh and stuff. But like in terms of heroes, how often are you really attacking a hero 6 times and still attacking him? I just don't see it being that relevant. I think the hero's laning stage is still incredibly weak, even with this change. I color me surprised that this hero ever gets picked. Movement speed reduced, shard damage reduced. Snowball can no longer save you from 2 extremely long cooldown ultimates. Crazy, you know, that's insane that's even in the that was even in the game in the first place. And then the gather radius is slightly lower. So little just nerfs to Tuskar. They did a bunch of these last patch too, and the hero was still seen a ton. Maybe it'll finally be enough, but Snowball's still pretty damn strong, even though the gather radius is slightly less. So I think we'll still be seeing Tuskar, but maybe just not a 99% pick ban rate. Tombstone slight nerfs, gives a little bit more gold and the zombies hit a little bit less hard, but I think Dirge will still be pretty good. If a lot of more ranged heroes start getting picked, that will make this hero worse, but overall, I think he's still strong. Now, this is one of my most exciting parts for this patch. Scepter added for Ursa. Allows you to cast your ultimate while disabled and reduces cooldowns from 50-40-30 to 30-24-18. As well as Enrage is no longer purgeable. I'm going to first talk about this really quickly. If people have been seeing my pubs lately, whenever I pick Ursa and I'm doing really well, the other team just builds like 2 Diffusal Blades and I'm fucking boned. Like, it's just, you're done for. So, this is a huge buff that I think was entirely necessary, which I'm highly looking forward to. I think Ursa is going to be one of the strongest potential mid laners or safe laners in this patch. He is susceptible to kiting, like I've talked about, but much less so than other heroes in terms of the fact that, like, of how it will affect him, because if he's on top of you, he wants to kill you instantly. And the fact is, in certain games, I'm assuming if it's like Abaddon Ultimate, then if he's disabled, if he's silenced, then it won't work. But if he's disabled, he can. So if you're against a lot of silences, I probably would never build this. But if I'm against a decent amount of disables, I would probably prefer this over BKB. Because BKB you can be initiated on and burst it down even before you utilize it. But with this, you just can't. So, like, you're just never going to get initiated on. I think it's either a mid-game item in that scenario or like a sick late-game replacement for Refresher that I used to buy. 18 seconds, that's like a 14-second downtime. That's insane at max level. And it basically makes it so you can't get initiated on. Like, you can just hit a tower as Ursa, and if they ever go on, you just pop your ultimate and reload 14 seconds later. That's pretty crazy. That combined with the fact that it can no longer be purged. So even if they use like stuff that kites you, you're still taking no damage for 4 seconds. You can turn around, your teammates can force staff you out. You're just not going to die, which is crazy. Really good, strong hero. And I'm sure he's going to have a ridiculously high pub win rate. Cause you to, okay, so and then that's exciting for that one. Vengeful Spirit, added Scepter bonus to her. She gets all the bonuses she used to get, but now when she dies, she gets an illusion that deals half damage, takes 50% extra damage, and then is able to use all of her abilities. Pretty nuts. I think that includes using her passive. So no matter what you do, if you're against a Venge, I think this is going to be core, like 4th or 5th item on Venge. Late game, that's just insane to have. You basically are always alive. It says the illusion lasts until she revives. I mean, I'm assuming you can farm with it. And if the hero hits for 150 damage, the illusion will still hit for enough to matter, and you can use Wave of Terror to push creep waves and still give your team all the bonuses, and you can save somebody with a hero that's already dead. I mean, it effectively makes the hero like have 2 lives, where the second life is slightly less effective, but still like crazy. I don't know, like 150% damage. That's barely any extra. I think this will be core. I think it's really good. I think we've already been seeing the rise of Vengeful Spirit carry, and now I think that 4th or 5th item, Ag Scepter, will be pretty good. So look forward to seeing how stupid this looks in games. Slight buff to Vino, slight buff to Visage, slight buff to Warlock. Kind of see all these heroes. I think all of them have potential, but don't play any of them. Base damage increase for Weaver. Honestly, I just don't think Weaver's any good. So, prove me wrong, Ice Frog. I don't think this hero's any good. Shackle Shot is now disjointable, which is nice. Slightly increased the speed, though. Slightly reduced the ridiculousness of the angles you can get from it. Overall, just slight nerfs to Wind Ranger. I said I didn't really think he'd nerf her, but I think these are very minor and completely reasonable, and I think the hero will still be fine. Removed Wyvern from Captain's Mode. Made Cold Embrace not such a good level 1 ability. Arctic Burn, now weaker level 1 as well. And Winter's Curse basically makes it so that you no longer do damage. Like if I Winter's Curse somebody, that my team can no longer do damage, and the only way for me to kill the person I Winter's Cursed is by having their teammates kill them. It provides the enemy with 50% or 50 attack speed bonus to kill their teammate faster, and increases the AoE, and the cooldown slightly increased, and the duration is heavily increased. But the fact is, like, when you're ganking somebody, you can no longer like solo smoke gank a core and just Wyvern Curse them as initiation. That's like a pretty massive nerf, honestly. I know she's removed from Captain's Mode. I don't really understand this. I don't know why they did this exactly. But I mean, I think it's just a massive nerf. Like, her gank potential is just gone. She's only team fighting. Like, she's just so limited now, and her level 1's so much shittier. Like, level 2 even shittier, level 3, like, whenever you have 1 point each of these abilities. Yeah, I think the hero's going to be shit. Rip Wyvern Pickers. A little buff to Maledict there. Nice, have an ability on a hero that doesn't want to be in the middle to give it slightly more cast range. Just like Kunkka, I think, I think this hero is already pretty strong. We've been seeing him get picked, but makes it so you can level your lifesteal without pushing the damn lane. So that's really nice. They added a nice, massive damage item to the early game. 75 gold for 2 damage. I guess it could be relevant maybe in the mid lane or something. You can soothe it for a little bit of health, kind of like it's like a mango that provides damage and health. I assume you can only have 1 per slot. It doesn't actually say, but I'm assuming. It's not like tangos, they don't stack, but maybe. I'm assuming it's like mangoes in that regard. Now, one of the biggest items that I think is going to change the meta a lot are the next 2. There, I said one of them, but the next 2 items. So you have Ogre Club and Quarterstaff combined together, no recipe, to make an item that gets all those bonuses and gives 130 attack range to all ranged heroes. So if you think about it, a lot of ranged heroes build items that use both of those. Butterfly, I think like most of the ranged heroes that would benefit from this would be melee, or would be Agi, sorry. I don't think Huskar cares, I don't think Wisp cares, so that eliminates all strength heroes. And then I don't think you'd buy this item if you're not a ranged hero. DK would benefit from this pretty heavily. And then int-wise, I think the only hero in my mind was Silencer. That could benefit from this because he relies a lot on attacks or on auto attack damage, as well as could use a little bit of health. So it may affect him, but maybe not. But a lot of Agi heroes, Viper, Drow. I'm just gonna like look at the hero pool. It's easier that way. Clinks maybe, but mainly Drow. I don't think Viper. I don't think Gyro, but I think Luna definitely wants it. Maybe a core Morana. Gives a little bit of damage to heroes like that. Razor, I thought it might help. And Venge, I thought it would help a lot. Viper, I already said. I think those are really the main heroes that it affects. I think the biggest thing to look at is heroes that are like 600 range, 630 range, whatever, can now outrange towers with this, making their siege potential that much better, as well as just like you can get like treads Aquila this, and you can just like take tier ones without even having to be in range of hitting them or having them hit you. Pretty insane. So that's how I think about that item. I think it could be. I mean, it's disassemblable, so. Hello, mom. But it's disassemblable, so like you can just build it and then build a BKB butterfly. It's pretty crazy, and it's not like quarterstaff's like horrible value if you like disassemble it into a BKB kind of early on. New item as well as the ether lens. There is no recipe. This seems like it's like an item that's highly situational, but like really good on specific heroes, and then just like you never buy it on the other ones. I think the main ones that I think of are Zeus and Lena. There's probably others, but those are the two that come to mind for me. Pretty crazy. This provides all the basic things that these things give, but then it gives all your cast 200 cast range to all your spells, and then 8% spell damage. That's kind of random, but I mean, I think mainly for Zeus, it's just crazy. I think this is going to be core on heroes like that. I don't know. We'll really have to see. It's a new item, but it looks pretty nuts to me. New item formed from Quelling Blade, Ring of Protection in a recipe. Basically, it gives a little bit of armor. It's basically like instead of a battlefield, you can go semi-halfway here. It's cool because you can farm a jungle camp every 14 seconds. You can take off 40% of its current health. So against like the bigger creeps, it's like 400 damage, just pure. I'm guessing it's just pure damage there, which is really cool. I mean, slightly increased farming speed, a little bit of tankability. I don't know how much we'll see this really come into play. I mean, you're paying technically 300 gold for. I know you're getting armor out of it, but in the end, you're really just getting this. If you think about it that way, like depending on how long you're going to hold on to that Quelling Blade for, I don't know. It's interesting. I like the idea, but I don't necessarily like myself think it would be that useful. But maybe I'll be proved wrong. Once again, they're increasing the bash damage, but reducing the overall damage. So basically, the damage comes out the same, but it makes it so the damage output is less because of crits and stuff like that. So I don't know why they're doing this. I think I don't think the item's that strong anyways. But that's okay. Minor nerf to Abyssal Blade. Couriers, damn it. Courier feeding is going to be held to a minimum. If you're one of those people, then, make sure you make use of these next couple days because you're not going to be able to courier feed. So, or if you do courier feed, it's going to take a lot of planning ahead. And then nice buff to supports here. And then all boots are being reduced by 5 movement speed because boots are being made to be cost 400 instead of 450. I don't know why they keep doing this. They did this like 3 patches ago, I think. It's just a minor indirect buff to all heroes with high movement speed base. So it's interesting to see that. Soul Curiosity now helps your buildings, like the attack speed aura. Blade Mo cooldown reduced. Nice buffs for both those items. I already talked about that. They're just like crippling bottle, I think. I think the biggest thing that you point out about this, like you see all these changes, is that heroes that don't buy bottle in the mid lane are going to be stronger. I think that's a huge indirect buff to Viper and Invoker. And we're going to be seeing a lot more of those kind of heroes. And you can now buy bottle from the side shop, and it starts with 1 charge. Kind of cool, but I think they're nerfing bottles so hard. So, I mean, if you think about it, 2 patches ago, it did 135 health. So, it's like 33% decrease. Pretty crazy. Flutter movement speed, nice buff. I like it. I think it's better that way. Like, less time, but more speed. I like that better. Mana regen for clarities. Better for supports in the early game. Not big of a deal here. Minor nerf to Glimmer Cape, though. Crimson Guard now blocks all the time. This is the same with Vanguard, so it's basically blocks all the time. instead of, but it comes out to be the same amount. I like it though. And then the cooldown reduction is now 60, or the cooldown is now 60 instead of 70. I think Crimson Guard was starting to get picked up a little bit, still under bought, so I don't mind the buffs. Basically, buff Daedalus by 1%. Let's just see that as it is, whatever. Agility bonus for Diffusal Blade. Just the slightly better bonus is level 1. And intelligence is better level 2 for that. I mean, Diffusal Blade has already been getting picked up because of the changes, so we'll probably just be seeing more and more of it. My favorite item in the game, buffed again. If you weren't going to buy it on Sark before, I hope you buy it now. Mana cost, an Ethereal Blade, maybe an indirect buff to heroes like Morphling, Tinker, stuff like that. Flying Courier, nice, yay, supports. I already talked about that. Heart of Trask is now restoring you to health instantly, or full health instantly. Not really, just, another buff. Dominate now sets the Dominate. I mean, I don't know why they honestly keep buffing this item. I think this item's like ridiculously overpowered already. But now create. I mean, I don't think there's any creep in the game that moves 350 or faster already. So there's that. Hood of Defiance now has an active. I'm wondering if I'm assuming Pipe just maintains as regular active, but it makes it so that you now get a 325 damage shield, kind of like Ember Shield that doesn't do damage, obviously. On a 60-second cooldown that lasts 12 seconds. I mean, heroes maybe like Bristleback or Centaur or something, that'd be pretty cool. And now one of the most hype changes in the history of all of Dota 2. And that's really the best introduction I can give to give it credit to where it's due, is that Iron Branch can now has an active that you can target the ground, and you can basically have Bob Ross reincarnate in your games of Dota 2. All right. You get to plant a happy little tree that lasts for 20 seconds. 200 cast range. I'm sure we're going to see some fucking international game like TI6 just be decided by a guy that blocks himself off with a happy little tree and then TPs out and saves himself. I primarily see that as the application. Possibly if you're running through the river, and I believe you get more healing from these trees, if I remember correctly later on. So if you're running through the river, then you can plant, if you're a mid hero or something, it might be worth your time to plant your Iron Branch and then heal off of it. It'd be pretty good. But other than that, I mean, other than the fact that it's awesome, I just don't really see much effect there. Pretty much the same treatment as Abyssal Blade. Not really much change, just basically makes it less consistent damage, but overall the same. Cooldown reduction from 16 to 13 and damage bonus increased. I really like this. Lincoln Sphere is kind of a bad item. There you go, Chad. Kappa Ross spamming that shit. I like it. Yeah, I mean, I think this item needed to be buffed. Basically just undid something from last patch. Whatever. Same idea as the Abyssal Blade here. Slight buff to Necrobook. Don't really like that item, but I think it needs to be buffed. Let's see here. Oh, I'm guessing this means it tells you how far they can see when you're placing them. I'm guessing. You get now 100 experience from Observer Ward dewarding. So this is pretty huge in the professional scene, that if you plant wards that get dewarded, if you give that to the enemy mid and they get the bounty rune, they will be level 2 walking into the lane. Pretty big. Late stage of the game, doesn't really matter, but early stage, super early, pretty huge change there. Ember Spirit, hype, buff to, I think the biggest hero, the only hero this really affects is Death Prophet because of her change to her passive. Orb of Venom is no longer a unique attack modifier. I mean, pretty much no heroes in the game even have unique attack modifiers anymore, so who really cares? I really like this. Phase is no longer cancels when casting. I mean, I kind of got used to, at the highest level, you get used to not canceling your phase boots, but that's a nice buff. Quelling Blade slightly reduced in cost. Ring of Protection got reverted. This was 3 or 4 patches ago. This, the opposite happened. It used to be this, and then it changed to this, so don't mind that. I really like this. Basically gives like sniper headshot on the main target. Makes it so that 40% of the time you cannot miss. So made it so it has a slightly longer cooldown, but it makes it so that, like, you know, slight counter to Butterfly in the late game, counter to Solar Crest, stuff like that. It basically makes it so, like, Solar Crest, for instance, instead of 25% miss chance, it's now only 15. Butter with 35%, it's only about, what is it, like 20? Around there. Or not 20. Yeah, about 20. Maim no longer pierces spell immunity on either Sanjin Yasha or Sage. Pretty massive nerf. This might make Slark want to build Scotty amongst other heroes. But the fact that you no longer can slow people who are magic immune, including heroes like Juggernaut, that's actually a significant nerf. Makes it so, like, on a hero like Slark, you can't stick on targets with just a Sanjin Yasha. So that's like the main thing I look at there. And I'll have to be evaluating that difference. Satanic slight buff, Sheep, nice buff there. This makes Silver Edge much more pickupable on a lot of heroes. I like it on Slark especially now against a lot of heroes. Other heroes will probably see it, but I'm not sure. I mean, it's basically like, I don't know if it's as good for heroes that want to buy Shadowblade, like to now upgrade. It's just better against, it like nerfs heroes like Huskar for being able to dunk it off. Tiny, it's really good against. Bristleback, can't BKB it off. I mean, it's definitely a much more viable item now. Skullbasher, same treatment, but slightly more as the other ones, but it also got a strength gain buff. Smoke of Deceit, very nice for supports. Basically means, like, the only factor that goes into support or Smoke of Deceit is the cooldown. Double duration instead of double healing. So basically, instead of like giving you the 14, it would give you 7 now, but it lasts twice as long. And this is the important part. Kappa Ross, very important, that I talked about earlier. Triangle Boots, slight nerf. Vanguard, talked about it already. Veil of Discord now has the same cost, just casually gives you 12 more int. I think certain heroes will really want that now. I think that's a really significant buff to that item. I believe now if you start with a null, you can now buy this entire item from the side shop. I don't know if that'll be relevant, but it always could be. Vitality booster, I think the biggest thing here is heroes like Necrolite that want to build early Atoses or in Silencer, or heroes like Bristleback that want early Vanguards that are in the side lane. I think that's actually pretty buff, like having to send the courier or like going to get it or whatever. That does matter. That is a big difference. So small buff to those kind of items, to Vanguard and stuff like that. And like I talked about earlier with Bristleback, that it would be a slight buff. So yeah, I do like that change. Removed the Ultimate Orb from the side shop, so now you can only buy it from the secret shop. That is a big change late game. Having you can actually just, if the other team needs an item with an Ultimate Orb on it, Sheepstick, Lincoln, Scotty, like you can just ward up their secret shop and their courier can never get there. So that definitely matters. Yasha movement speed reduced. Makes it so that the items it builds into are still the same, but getting that casual Yasha is a lot less value, or not a lot less, but just a little bit less value, and I like that. Overall, those are the changes. I'm going to look at, I have the imager of the changes to the map. So it looks like this is the Radiant Jungle Camp. Wow. That is so weird. So it looks like, okay, yeah, we're going to zoom in here. There we go. I was like, I could barely see it. So it looks like there's like an extra staircase between the two camps that was just added. That's crazy, actually. And just more pathing in the Radiant Jungle, it looks like. That's going to add a lot to the game for sure. I'm looking forward to that. Let's do this one here. Roshan got a Santa hat. I think that's the only purpose of that picture. Epic. That's important. Yeah, it looks like the right camp just got moved over. That's pretty crazy. It's really close to lane now. It makes it similar to Dire in terms of like, I always thought like it was a little bit less efficient. Like if you saw me when I want to wind between the lane and the camp, it was just farther on the Radiant than it is on Dire. I'm not sure how the pulling mechanics are going to work with cutting down these trees and stuff. I'm sure it works based on the fact that the creeps can get like right here, I would assume. So that makes the dire off lane a lot better. Yeah, look forward to that. That's pretty cool. And then, what do we got here? There's just another spot up here, I guess. The better vision. I guess that's like a ward spot potentially, as well as just like a place like for heroes like Storm or Co-op to go to. Kind of cool. That's a fucking fast Marana. I didn't even realize the items she had. Looks like that's, I saw a juke ability spot. I guess that's just somewhere to go. Maybe that pathing's free up there. That's kind of cool. Okay, a little more viable options in the laning stage. I don't really see a difference here. Is this like a ward spot maybe? That could be what it is. And those look like they're the changes. I didn't see any that were pictures of the dire camps. If you see it, oh, there it is. What? How did I skip that one? This is the secret shop for the dire. You now have the secret shop, and then the creep camp is to the right. They added the new creep camp. I mean, it just makes it so that, especially for heroes like Ursa, I think this is actually a pretty big buff. Heroes that just want to rotate, like threaten the Rosh pit. It's another place where you can effectively farm ancients and another creep camp. Like it's just another creep camp to get gold from, where you don't have to run like back and forth. Same thing with the Radiant. I think this is really nice. It's kind of cool. And I think that changing up the map a little bit is really necessary for mixing up rotations, making it so it's not so stagnant and so predictable anymore. So yeah, it looks like the main change on Radiant was that camp, as well as this camp. And then the main change, there was no changes in the dire jungle, but there is this addition. And then obviously a little tweak there. But I do like that they added this ramp here. It makes the penetrating the Radiant jungle much easier. It was always easier to get into the dire jungle here and invade stacks, even though stacks may not be as relevant anymore compared to the Radiant though. So I really like to see that change. Overall, that will be my patch analysis video. I think that some of the strongest heroes that will be in the upcoming patch are the ones that rely on physical damage farming. I think that's something that got significantly buffed. I think the mid lane is going to see a lot of changes, just like when you see Leshrac get nerfed. In that other patch, you're going to see SF get nerfed here. That opens up a lot of heroes that were otherwise not viable. I think we're going to see a lot of interesting pickups with the Dragonlance. I think that's a pretty cool item in combination with a lot of very short-range heroes as well as very long-range heroes that would benefit even greater from a little bit of damage and a little bit of tankiness, primarily affecting Agi heroes and DK. And then I also just think that Wraith King's going to be one of the strongest carries. I think Slark's going to be still pretty good in this meta. I think Abaddon is going to be one of the strongest offlaners. I think that Spearbreaker's still going to have a lot of presence on the map. I think that a lot of the heroes that you see now that didn't get touched, those are the heroes in particular that I think of, Abaddon and Spearbreaker, are still going to be very strong. I think Ursa is going to be very strong. I think that Tiny will remain strong, but like I said, a lot of heroes that are vulnerable to kiting have been made weaker by these other items and the buffs to range carries. So I expect maybe we'll see some Medusa. I expect to see some gaming Timbersaw. Maybe some cool, I don't think many of the Axe Scepter changes are really going to matter that much. I think Core Silencer is going to be a pretty big thing. I look forward to a lot of these different heroes and seeing how they come out to play, but or like how their different abilities come out in their play. Overall, I look forward mostly to the heroes that were added to Captain's Mode, not the ones that were removed. I didn't even realize. I thought Outward Devourer was removed, but it looks like he wasn't. So I look forward to seeing him as immediate effect, becoming either a carry or different laning type of mid. But yeah, I look forward to seeing a lot of the new heroes, Earth Spirit, Oracle. Obviously, Arc Warden. I did not go over Arc Warden. I'll briefly talk about that as well. First part of the patch, where's Arc Warden up here? So basically this makes it so it's like, I think it's like a 20-second cooldown or something. Does a lot of damage, but if there's any units next to it, then then the enemy will stop taking damage. It's a DOT, which is nice, but it's like a 200 something radius, so it's about melee, a little bit more. So it's kind of cool. I think I like that ability. I think it just makes it so team fight wise pretty useless. Magnetic field, but maybe in the laning stage, like 1v1 situations, it would be good. Generates a circular distortion field that grants evasion. It's a very small AoE, but it's 100% evasion, so it's really good for sieging towers. I think that's pretty cool. Very unique ability, but 100% evasion is pretty nuts. And then we got Spark Wraith, and it summons a Spark Wraith that slowly materializes and haunts a targeted area until an enemy comes within its range. Once a target has found the Wraith, it fuses with them. It sounds like something like a Techie's Mine. Sounds kind of weird. I don't honestly know exactly how that ability works, but it seems pretty cool. And then the one that like everyone gets hyped about and like the main part of the hero is the fact that he summons a duplicate of himself that gets all of his items and their different individual cooldowns. So it's like a 70, 60, 50, I think, cooldown on his ultimate, and it's 20 seconds. I'm assuming like Midas. I know Midas is absolutely core in this hero. I'm assuming he's a carry based on the fact that Midas would be core, and it makes sense that he would just get 6-slotted really quickly. I know his stat gains are horrible. He's an agi hero, relatively high mana cost abilities. So based on what I know, he would be a carry, but he has like 45 base damage, high range. I don't know. I expect to see some cool stuff in pubs. I don't know what. Like I just imagine the micro being pretty hilarious on the hero. I don't know if he's really my kind of hero, but I look very much forward to a new hero. We don't get those very often anymore. So overall, that's my patch analysis. I'll be answering questions, but that's it for my YouTube video. I hope you guys enjoyed going over the patch with me. And this is pathetic. And that's a solid end to my music video, or my YouTube video.